Okay, I'm gonna actually sit down. Is that okay? You guys, oh, they can't see me now. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna start with a quote that is brought down in the book of Jeremiah. So the prophet Yirmiyahu. And over here, he's speaking specifically to the women. And he's giving encouragement and direction. And he says, okay, and this is, so some of the words that are in this quote might, sound peculiar, like the words that he's using. So I want you to just take this in really slowly. He says, set up markers for yourself. Put your heart on the highway, the road upon which you went, and return. Okay, this is Jeremiah 31:20. And Rashi, the one of the commentaries, kind of digs in and says, what are these words he's saying? What are these markers that he's talking about? What markers and what path and what is this, like this highway, right? So Rashi is explaining that set up markers for yourself means that the path to our future is delineated by the actions and good ways of our ancestors. We are never told to imitate. However, we are advised to mark our heart's journey, traveling at our own pace, in our own way, delineating our path step by step with information gleaned from the lives of those who preceded us. Okay, so that's a lot to take in. Let's just let that sit. Any questions about that? Jeremiah, who was out there trying to bring the Jewish people back to Hashem, he's speaking over here to the Jewish women, and he's telling us not to imitate and also not to initiate, but to see what has been done and to know that we're already on this path. The markers are already on the way. We don't need to recreate the wheel. We don't need to do something that's out of our realm. And when I read this quote, what it reminded me of is a story that Rebbetzin Esther Jungreis would share. You for sure know the story, Don. Rebbetzin Jungreis would say that her Zaidi, who lived was her Zaidi from Hungary also? But her grandfather, they wouldn't see him so often because it was a trek, right? He lived in a small town, maybe in Galicia. I can't remember, but they had to travel to see their Zaidi. And the last time she went, she was a child before she was taken to Bergen-Belsen with the rest of her family. The last time she saw her Zaidi said to her, Estherke, I think she, right? Estherke, which was like the Polish way of Esther. Estherke, come, let's go for a walk. And she bundled up, her and her Zaidi bundled up, and they went out, and it was a freezing cold, even worse than what we have outside today, snowstorm. And the snow was so high, and she was a little kid, and she was stumbling and she was falling in the snow. And her grandfather said to her, Esther, I'm going to walk ahead of you, and you walk in my footsteps, right? You know the story, right? And basically they walked, like he would take the steps with his big feet, and she would follow, and she said she was falling and she was slipping in the snow. But basically when they got back home, the grandfather said to her, Esther, the winds are going to be so fierce. The snow and the weather and the outside elements are going to try to knock us down. But just know that I have already forged a path. The path is already set for you to follow in my footsteps. Can you imagine this powerful message from her Zaidi, his final message that he gave her? That the path, you don't need to go out alone. We're not doing that. We don't need to do that. And it would be impossible, right? It's hard enough to go into the right footsteps, right? It's hard enough to follow this path. So that is basically what Yirmiyahu is saying to the Jewish women. He's saying, set up the markers are there, right? And you're going to put your heart to the highway, whatever that means. I'm not exactly sure what he means by those words, but it means the path to your future is delineated by the actions and good ways of our ancestors. Like, just know you're stepping into big shoes ahead of you. You're going to be okay. So that I thought was a nice way to start off this class. And we're going to be delving into the second of the Imahot today. I thought we'd get through like all of them in 5 weeks, but I think it took us 3 weeks to do Sarah. So I'm really hoping that we're going to do Rebecca today. And then next class, we're going to do Rachel and Leah, because their stories are very entwined with each other. And then we're taking a 2-week break. For me, I'm going to be in Israel for 2 Tuesdays, and Gadi's going to be teaching. And I really, really encourage everyone to come. He loves teaching you guys, and he is such a gem of a teacher. So I really encourage you all to come back, please, please, please. Okay. And I'll let you know what 2 weeks he's going to be, like what topics he'll be doing. I'll just give him the option of, I'd like him to do the soul in the afterlife, especially after last night. I think that would be a great opportunity. There were a lot of questions about that, so maybe he'll do that. Sorry? Yeah. Okay, so I'll give you more information on that to come. Okay, so let's get through Rebecca today. And I'm so happy for Susie that she's on her way to a warmer climate right now, but I'm really missing her right in my corner over here. And I'm like, Hashem, please help me. Okay, so it's very hard to be the second. It's very hard to come after Sarah the matriarch, right? Like, who could compare? The mother of the Jewish people. Like, what could even compare to that? But that's not the case over here, because our sages argue that Rebecca is one of the most important matriarchs of all. Her contribution to the Jewish world is everlasting. Okay, and we're going to understand her story, and we'll kind of, I'll try to pull like a little bit of a storyline. There's so many details, and we're not going to have time to do it all, but come back on Shabbat for Parasha class, because we're literally doing this hands in hand at the same time. So more depth on Saturday about the story. Okay, so Sue, last week, and I forgot to bring that big Post-it, but Gail and Sue were filling in, as I was talking, we were filling in some traits of the matriarch. So we got there was a whole page of traits that we gleaned from the story and the challenges in the life of Sarah. We're going to try to do that now with Rebecca. Okay, but if we could sum it up, if I could go to any school child in West Rogers Park that studies Torah and say, what's the character trait of Sarah the matriarch? They're going to say one word. Chava, what are they going to say? I know, but how would you, like any typical school child will probably say Sarah represents modesty. No, not the one. Okay, well, that's like even like I have a bat mitzvah book. It's like this, the book that I give to all my bat mitzvah students. It's like this beautiful art scroll book, and it has a little blurb on every one of the imahot, and it basically says Sarah, modesty, and then it talks about all her things. They didn't do all this study, and they don't have the 50 other traits that we got from who Sarah is. But in a nutshell, a lot of people will say we learn modesty from Sarah. She was so confident in who she was. She didn't have to be out there when the angel said, "Where is your wife?" Hineba Ohel. She's in the tent. She didn't need the limelight. That's a big trait of Sarah. Now, if I would ask that same kid from West Rogers Park that goes to Jewish school his or her whole life, and I would say, well, what is the trait of Rebecca? They would say one word. Does anyone know what that word would be? Chesed, kindness. Okay, that would be the word. Okay, that is like, if we could sum it up, which it's very hard to sum up a whole world, a whole person, but that would be definitely the go-to word. Okay, so Sue, I'm going to ask you to take some notes. I want you to just take another page and write down all the words that come to mind as I'm speaking. Okay, so definitely kindness. And where do we see that? What is the story of the kindness that Rebecca does? The camels, and also Eliezer, right? So Eliezer, the servants of Abraham. I'm going to just recap a little bit. Yeah. Okay, we get that from yeah, it does. It does. So very good. Very good. We're getting there, Paula. So everyone knows, I mean, it's not only the custom for Jews to have a veil, right? Isn't it? Doesn't everyone have a veil, whether they veil themselves or not? Everyone, I don't know, does everyone have a veil? It's a very wedding type of thing, right? Like, yeah, okay. but the Jewish, like the source of a veil is when Rebecca is meeting Isaac for the first time, and she's almost like blushing, and there's such an intensity, and it wasn't only a physical intensity, it was a spiritual intensity. So she covers herself in a veil. And from there, and this is actually the first arranged marriage in the Torah. Obviously, you see that she consents to it. In fact, the word that I love, what she says when they say, do you consent to going with the servant of Eliezer, right? He's Abraham and Isaac's servants, that he's looking for a match for Rebecca. And they say, do you want to go? And the word she uses is elech. Okay, that's the Hebrew word, elech. Let's pull apart that word. Lech, from the word lech lecha. Abraham, that was his choice of words. I will go, lech lecha. Go into the unknown. When God says lech lecha, over here she's using the same root word, elech, I will go. She's not being called upon at this point by God. She herself is stepping forward. So what we know about Rebecca, which is game changer, one of her quality traits, she is a doer. She's not a big talker. She is a doer. Okay, and something that we learned from the last few classes with Abraham and Sarah is the way that they also acted, the way that they, their way was to say a little and do a lot. Okay, so we see this again with Rebecca. Omer ma'at ve'aseh harbe. Okay, so that might be a theme that we see with a lot of these great people, that they're not they're not like saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to do it, and then they give you like a little nothing. They say, I'll give you a little nothing, and they go all in. Okay. Well, I mean, no one knows what they look like. So there's that's actually an interesting conversation. I don't think you could ever depict what the forefathers and foremothers look like. So maybe people of a very high sensitivity won't try to paint their faces. Yeah. I don't know. Does anyone have an answer for that? I don't know. I'm not sure what artist it is. Is it Jewish? Is it Christian? Jewish art. I'm not sure. I don't. Well, actually, Rebecca is one of the 4 women that's also spoken about her beauty in the Torah. So they're both known to be very, very beautiful, but we have no idea. They had like hadras panim, like their face shone. They were, I mean, they were speaking to God. They were having prophecy. Like, we don't know, like even we've all seen the 10 Commandments, right? We've all seen the movie. Yeah. I remember in Toronto as a child, I don't remember what day of the year it was, but always once a year, they would show it, like the rerun of it on Easter. It's like, okay, I mean, we wouldn't miss it. We never missed it. There's something that does to a child, where you see this like, gorgeous actor who's like Moses or whatever it is, like it kind of, it limits you in your ability to, I don't know, these people they were not normal human beings. This is from thousands of years. They were on such a high level that, yeah, exceptional. So it's hard, it limits you when you have a picture. So that might be one of the reasons why they don't paint Sarah, but yes. I was going to say, yeah, they had to use their and brave and bold and daring, and there was a lot at risk with each one of them. And that's why it's so important that we're gonna, so good. let's start from the beginning. Let's go through a little bit of an overview, just for some people that it's been a while since you've known this. I said last week, I'm like, we know more about Kim Kardashian than we know about our matriarchs. That's just, I mean, it's true. So let's just understand, let's delve in. So she is coming on the heels of Abraham and Isaac losing their mother. And it's almost a very sad time. There's no joy in their tents. They're not sure what to do next. The miracles that happened while Sarah was alive, the three miracles, the light that emanated, the fresh challahs, the cloud showing divine providence, they all moved on. It was dark, it was gloomy, okay? And Abraham realizes, okay, maybe now we need to bring back some joy, bring back some light. And he sends and builds a nation, right? It's on him. He knows that the son of his late wife is going to be the next one, right? We have Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the three forefathers, okay? And we have Sarah, corresponding to Abraham, Rebecca, corresponding to Yitzchak, and then next week, we're gonna talk about Rachel and Leah, the two wives of Yaakov that have the 12 tribes, okay? So he knows it's time to move things forward, get up from your mourning, right? There's a mourning period. And as we've discussed, one of the customs in Judaism at the end of a Shiva period is to actually, for someone, in the extended family, to actually scream at the mourners and say, get up, get up, get up. And you like shoo them out of the house and they have to walk around the block. That's it's a Jewish custom. Yeah. Yeah. Not everyone does it. My family doesn't do this, but I was in a Shiva house where I saw it with my own eyes. And it was shocking because I'm like, they're so delicate, like don't scream at them, you want to like bubble wrap them. But that's the greatest gift you could give them, is after you sit in mourning, you need a little kick to get moving and to get up. And even though your life is not going to be back to normal, there's 1 month, there's 11 months, there's 12 months of this process of mourning. And then there's forever more. It's like, you're never completely whole again. You're always, and that's okay. But sometimes you need a little kick. So Abraham is in this dark place, and then he decides it's time. He calls his servant, his loyal servant Eliezer, and he asks Eliezer to go back to where he comes from, okay? They're in Canaan now, which is Israel, and he wants Eliezer to travel back to Haran, where Abraham was raised, okay? This is very interesting. Abraham is looking for a wife for his son in his hometown, preferably connected to his lineage. There's something there, okay? Because Rebecca is related to Abraham, okay? So he goes and as I said, this is the first prearranged, or the first arranged marriage written in the Torah. But this marriage is used as a model for all marriages, because it is a marriage filled with love and acceptance. And there's this incredible connection between Rebecca and Isaac. They were barren for 20 years, postscript, right? They didn't have Yitzchak for a very long time, praying and crying and waiting. So it wasn't an easy path, but they had each other and they were very strong with each other. So much so, and I wanted to share a 2-minute voice note with you. So cute. I have a mentor. Everyone should have a mentor or a Rebbitzin. And my mentor, her name is Eliza Bulow. And I speak to her often, and I'm part of a group. That's actually how I met Ali Vegan. It's through Eliza. She put us on a group together. And it's been a group that we've been a group for many, many years. And we're all much younger than Eliza. We wouldn't call her like our spiritual mother, because she's like, I'm not that old, but we call her our spiritual sister, our soul sister. And she has encouraged us many, many times to focus on our marriage, put our marriage first and not our kids first. Many, many times. And everyone has complicated marriages. Her husband is no longer observant, and she speaks about it. She writes about it. It's a lot of you know Eliza, know her path, but she has the most beautiful marriage. So let me see, Julie, how do I do this? I want to share a voice note that I wrote to her this morning, and I said, I'm teaching a class about Rebecca, and I want to, and your voice comes to me, Eliza, because you're always encouraging us to put our marriage first. So when we hear about the most incredible love relationship that this husband and wife has, it's very complicated, because when it gets into raising their kids, I mean, one of their kids, Esav, is evil. And Rebecca never discusses how terrible he is with her husband. Like, their marriage had nothing to do with their parenting, which is very different to the way most of us parent, right? We parent in a way where, you know, everything is about our kids. Like, even date night, we're like, we can't stop talking about the kids. And the fear of that is that when they eventually move out of the house, right, Jill? Like, eventually. So Jill said she just had it was your 30th wedding anniversary, and she was like, it's so amazing to, like, you know, all these years you're focused on the kids, and then to be able to get to a place where you say, we haven't had so much time, but I actually still like you, right? Like, but a lot of times people tend, after they raise the kids, they're like, I have nothing in common with you, right? They have nothing in common because their whole marriage was based on the kids. So let me find this. Would it be okay if I played her response? I asked her, like, I'm like, what should I tell the ladies about this? And she sent me a 2-minute voice note. Okay. 5. No, I think I got it. I think maybe. Not very tech savvy. Okay, let's try this.
Hi, Eve. So nice to hear your voice. I guess the thing I would add to this conversation is is related to the words and the utilize so it's not like points of the families that are strong. So that's what it was, and we should value more from the home based on this. So and sometimes it can be fun. Like we get to know each other, we have more time, and we have more money, and we can do this. It's super fun time. It's all has to do with that house that we built with that person. The house is built with each decision, each and every single interaction, each.
So you guys got the gist of it? Did you hear what she's saying? It's like, what is the home that we're trying to build? It's not a physical home, right? Clearly, right? It's this union. And they become the models. So Sue, write down some words for that, because they become the role models for a good, solid marriage. Because there was so much respect there. But Rebecca chooses in, first of all, I mean, she hasn't even met the guy yet, right? Let's go back to how this process works, okay? So Eliezer goes back to Haran, and Abraham assures him, God is going to help you. Like, he's thinking, how am I going to find the right one? Like, I don't want to mess this up. Like, the future of the Jewish people is seriously on his shoulders. So it's like a very big task that he has at hand. And Abraham says, don't worry, Hashem is going to be with you. Hashem is going to show you. There's going to be divine assistance. Your mission is going to be successful. So off he goes. And where does Eliezer go to find this woman? at the well. It was like the local hangout, right? In Toronto, it was Marky's on a Saturday night, right, Don? Like
Yeah.
if like everyone who was anyone needed to be there to be seen, right? That was just how it went. So that was like, you know, equivalent to the local well in Haran. So he comes to the well, and there's so many people there. Okay, it's the time of day where all the women were filling up their water. It was like the women's hours at the well. Okay, and Eliezer kind of parks himself on the side, and he's asking God for a clear sign. And he basically makes this little conversation with God. He says, "Show me who would have, like, show me which of these women has the greatest amount of chesed, of kindness. Maybe that's the person that needs to be the foremother of the Jewish people." So he goes up to a girl, very young. By the way, does anyone know how old Rebecca was? So there's two opinions, like as with everything in Judaism. So either she was 12 or she was 3. She was very young, okay? And he goes up to this girl, this young little Rivka, who's drawing water, and he says, "Please give me some of your water." And she gives him his water, and then he says, "Will you feed some water to my camels?" Now he had many camels, and on average, a camel drinks like 50 liters or gallons of water to satiate themselves. Like within 10 minutes, they drink and drink and drink. And he had like 10 or 12 camels. Like there were a lot of camels. That's a lot of water. And does anyone know what happened at the well? There was a miracle. The water went up to greet Rebecca. I mean, she was willing to put in the work, which is another one of her traits. She is very, she's not afraid of hard work. She doesn't run away from it. She's not this princess, like, you know how like our generation, everyone's too afraid to like work hard or to like break a fingernail. You know, she was not like that. She was like, "I'll do it," right? Very, very Jewish trait. And actually the qualities of Rebecca that were laying dormant within her were coming to the surface, because we also know that she came from a very interesting household. Does anyone know what her father's name is? Bethuel. Her uncle is Lavan. We're going to get to Lavan next week. Okay, they're all related. It's like this very interesting situation. Her father is Bethuel. We meet him over here in this parsha, and we never meet him again in the Torah, because the commentaries tell us that when Eliezer came in, like Rebecca gave him water, and then Rebecca runs home and tells her father, "There's someone that traveled that needs a place to stay, and he gave me all these gifts." She's wearing a gold nose ring and gold bangles, and these were people. This was a time of a lot of corruption in the world, right? Abraham had still had a lot of work to do to bring the Jewish people to, you know, they weren't yet Jewish, right? They weren't yet like completely involved. There was no Torah, right? Abraham was learning Torah for 500 years before the Torah was even given. He was living Torah. That's what we learned last Shabbat. But not everyone had all the value system down pat within them without the book, right? So Bethuel, this is very interesting, Chava, this might be new for you, but maybe not, because I know that you taught this. Bethuel, his name even has the root of Betula, which means a virgin. And he was not such a moral guy. He was the king at that time, and he would take every young virgin and sleep with them. I know, including his very own daughters. So it states that is actually one of the reasons. I know it's terrible, but we have to understand, like sometimes when you go into another culture, you like when I went to Thailand, I was so in pain by the corruption and the immorality that was everywhere I looked. Like we're like staying at a hotel and it's down the street from like the traffic industry, and these young girls are sitting with these older men, and I literally couldn't, like I couldn't stomach it. I told you guys, I cried on the last day. My husband called, he's like, "How's the trap?" And I'm like, my neshama hurts. Like my soul needs to get the heck out of here. Like it was so hard. But that's when sometimes you go into a different time and place, and it's like, seriously, like how could a culture be like this? So we, not to judge, but we have to understand This was their culture. I mean, God just recently, 2 parshas before, destroyed the world because it was so immoral. So even after that, we're still not doing too well. Without the Torah guiding us as a moral compass, we don't have the value system. The Jewish people brought consciousness to the world, right? Well, who wrote about that? Was it Mark Twain? You know, was it Mark Twain, his famous quote? And he says it's almost like we bring it. It wasn't in such a positive light the way he wrote it, right? You could read his. But I think he also said something like, we bring consciousness to the world, or morality, almost like a scar. Like we're always reminding people to like step it up. And he said it's like, I don't think it came out in such a nice way. So if you want to look it up, yeah, yes.
Why is there such a discrepancy of how old?
Okay, so what do you mean, 3 or 12? So because a lot of it is medrash. So 3 weeks ago we discussed that there's pshat, there's like the base value, there's remed, which is hints that help us understand the storyline. Then there's drash, which is what we're talking about. Medrash is drash, which is a deeper level. That's like it's the connotation and different sages that have brought more to light. And then there's sod, then there's the secret, the mystical level. So there's 4 different levels of understanding. So it doesn't say her age in the pshat. So we have to go a little deeper. And those are sometimes divinely inspired stories. And sometimes like it's, there's different people that have brought down different stories and ideas. And it's not face value. Okay. So it doesn't say how old she is. Okay. So let's go back to her father, Bituel, who was not a very good guy. He was under a lot of pressure to take his daughter, just like he took every other virgin. So at this point, when they decide, okay, we're going to let this match go through, Rebecca's mother and brother, Lavan, say, what's the rush? She's so young. Let her stay at home for a couple more years. We'll raise her a little more, and then we'll send her to you, right? That makes sense, right? She was so young. But that wouldn't have been safe for Rebecca. We needed to protect her, right? So that's when they put it in her court. And that's also a very important teaching. Even in an arranged marriage, quote unquote, you can never be forced into it. You need to give your consent, right? In some of the, some strains of Judaism, like in Williamsburg or Borough Park or in the Hasidic world, it is an arranged marriage in every sense of the way, meaning that the parents just have a l'chaim, they decide, and it's, maybe the bride and groom meet once in some extreme cases. I don't think it happens so often anymore, like that, even in all extreme cases, but they will never be forced to marry an individual. There has to be physical, there has to be like a likeness to each other physically. Like there has to be some chemistry there. No one will tell you to marry if there isn't that chemistry. For sure. Oh, there's flaws to every system. And actually, well, you could. It could be very intense. Sometimes when I look at the shidduch system, like the marriage, the prearranged marriages and the shidduch dating, like blind dating and all that, I see lots of flaws. Trust me, there's a shidduch crisis out there. But there is a full-on Google, the shidduch crisis. There's more girls than boys. It's not working perfectly. But I always ask myself, Paula, what is the alternative? I have so many friends that are my age. I'm 42 years old, turning 42. So many of my friends are not yet married, and the dating world out there it's really awful nowadays. What the men expect, even like for like at a first date, like there's no chivalry. There's no, so the alternative is not better, meaning it's actually working. Jewish people are getting married. There is a system in place, whereas in the world out there, it is very hard to get married nowadays. Oh, yeah. Right. Okay, so back to this. So we all understand now why she needed to get the heck out of her household. Okay, so here's another bit of corruption that we learn about her father. Her father wanted to poison Eliezer because he came with great wealth and gifts, and he wanted to poison him and kill him and take all his wealth. So actually, I don't know if it was an angel. The food was swapped out, and the food that was poisoned actually poisoned Betuel. We never see or hear about him again. So unfortunate end for him, and he was a pretty not such a great guy. And that's where Rebecca is coming from. So she did not grow up in a house of chesed and kindness, but this is a trait that was dormant in her, because it is actually one of the three traits of a Jew. Like, this was in her, and it bubbles up to the surface. She's going above and beyond with her kindness. Like, she could have given a little water and say, go water your own camels, right? Like, that would have been okay. But she gives him and gives them, and that's when he knows this is a sign for him that this is the one. He doesn't look any further. And it happens to be that she is in direct relation to Abraham. Okay, so they are related to each other, which is also pretty important for the storyline. Okay, any questions so far? Yes. Very interesting question. And so we don't always know how many wives they have, right? We don't always know, because there might be more that are not brought down in the Torah. But very interesting to what you're asking, when they're barren for 20 years, there's a heck of a lot that we learn about prayer. And Rebecca is praying for her to conceive, but Isaac is praying, like, basically they're praying for each other, which is something that we learn, that when you pray for someone else, you're answered first, okay? But there's something very interesting, that Isaac is praying not for him to be fertile, because, like, very often it's the man who can't have a child, right? So we notice that he's only praying for her, which means that he's praying that the lineage comes through her, which leads me to believe that he might have had another wife, but he wants it to come through Rebecca. She's like his primary, his love, his wife, the only one that we know of. But that is a very good question. And from that teaching, it made me think that he probably did have more wives, because he wasn't praying for himself. He was only praying that it be through Rebecca. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So where are we in this story? So she's given all these gifts. They try to poison Eliezer, and she's a young girl. So they say, and actually the Torah states that Rebecca was a virgin that no man had known, and it gives like this detail, and it speaks about the commentaries. The Midrash speaks about Betuel and his very low level of morality, and they basically needed to get her out of there, and they wanted her to be raised by Abraham. Basically, she's going going back to Canaan, to the land of Canaan, to kind of continue being raised. She's still a child, but it's much safer, and Abraham is the most compassionate person. So that's how it's meant to be. And they give her the option: do you want to stay with your mama, or do you want to go out off with Eliezer into the unknown? And she says, Elech, I will go. Same word as Abraham and God, lech lecha. Okay, same root. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next part. Let's go to them meeting each other. Okay, so she travels with Eliezer, and she brings her maidservants, right? There's never any inappropriate, we have the laws of yichud. There's no seclusion. It's not a dangerous situation. She goes with her maidservants. They're traveling, and as they're coming closer to Abraham's home, there is a field, and Yitzchak is out there. Isaac is out there in the field, and he had gone out to pray. Okay, he's a very holy man, And Rebecca is on her camel and she sees Yitzchak, and it says that Yitzchak and Rivka raised their eyes, and this was not only referring to their physical eyes, they were seeing each other in a spiritual light, and they were seeing each other on a soul level. And do you guys know what happens? It's a great storyline. She falls off of her camel, right? Because and there's commentaries that speak about it. What do you mean? Why did she slip off of it? Was she so overcome? She fell because she wanted to not see him from up there where she was. She wanted to see him eye to eye. So she slips off her camel to see him like face to face. She doesn't want to be from above as if she was superior. She sees his great holiness. And she asks Eliezer, who is this man? And Eliezer says, it's my master. This is Yitzchak. And what she does is she covers herself in a veil. And that's where we get the veil before the marriage, right? From her. Okay. And next week, when we talk about Leah and Rachel, we'll talk about unveiling the bride because of what they went through. So first we get the veil from Rebecca, and then the unveiling, the decan, that part of the ceremony is from Rachel and Leah. Okay, so there's a lot here and we don't have so much time. So I'm gonna just skim a little bit. We have her coming to, she's brought to the tent of Sarah. The three signs reappear. Okay, so they understand she has everything it takes to become the future mother of the Jewish people. It's very, very exciting. And then they get married, they go through 20 years of infertility, maybe because she was 3. You know? But so she's 23 and she has her first baby, but whatever, it was different in those days. It was just different. We can't relate to what it's like nowadays, but they're praying for each other. And a really beautiful story that this reminded me of is the story of a man and a husband and wife that were married for 10 years that couldn't have children. Now, according to Judaism, I mean, you're allowed to stay with your wife even if she's infertile, but there's a mitzvah for a man to have a child. It's not the mitzvah on the woman, it's the mitzvah for the man. So in the laws, the technical laws, he could actually give his wife a get, a divorce, and go and find another wife that will have a child, and he'll be built up through his child. So there's a beautiful story of this husband and wife that had 10 beautiful years together, but they couldn't have a child. And on their 10th year anniversary, it was basically, he made a party, and it was going to be like, I mean, she made the party. I don't know who made the party, but they had a party of separation, that they were going to love each other and celebrate the 10 years that they had together. And then they were going to go on their ways. It didn't work out for them to build a family together. And that was very important. So they're at the party and they're saying their goodbyes and there's so much love. And he says, I'm so in love with you that I'll give you anything, take anything from my home. And they're drinking and enjoying and crying and loving and, just, and he wakes up, he had gotten a little sugar, a little drunk, and he wakes up and he's in her mother's home because he said, you could take anything you want. So she took him with her when she went back to her mother's home. So the end of the story, true story. So the end of the story, this is a story that's brought down, I'm pretty sure, in the Gemara. It's like from thousands of years ago, but they ended up staying together and they were able to build a family together. It's just sometimes it takes time. Over here, it took 20 years. So they're waiting and their love is so profound. And obviously there's a concern because Rivka knows that the Jewish nation needs to be built up through her. So it's complicated, but then the complications get even more when she does conceive, because she realizes something is totally off. She has, this like big belly, and she's so excited to be wearing her maternity clothes, back in the day. And every time she walked by a place of spirituality and Torah study and prayer, she felt like the baby was trying to get out. Like there was like this movement going on, massive movement inside of her. And every time she passed a place of idol worship, there was also this struggle, this like movement, this pain in her stomach. And she thought she was going crazy. And she was told by someone with prophecy that there are 2 nations within her womb. and which was Esav, which is the forefather of Edom, right? Edom, which Edom is the forefather of many of the, I mean, some people think that that's maybe the forefather of the Nazi, you know, we don't know exactly, but Edom was, you know, back in the day, was Edom from, hold on one second, let me check if it's from Greece. Oh, here we go. So Edom was called Rome in the ancient Roman Empire. And when we learn about the Roman Empire, we learn about the Colosseum, you know, it stands today in Italy. Yeah, so maybe it's not the forefather of the Nazis. I don't know how that would be possible. But we know that they were into cruelty, and they would sacrifice lives just for their enjoyment and for their entertainment. If people wanted to be religious, if people were spiritual people, they would take them, they would imprison them, and those people would be torn apart by hungry lions. I mean, that was what was done in the Colosseum. I mean, we go visit and we're like, oh, the Colosseum, salty. You know, it was a place of like sadistic like murder, and no, it's just terrible to think about it. And Edom is the father of Amalek. So that's where we get to Germany, because it's, some people think like, you know, there's a mitzvah in the Torah to erase the memory of Amalek, right? And there's one parsha where we read something, and you know, we're supposed to stamp out this memory because it's a terrible, terrible lineage of cruelty and pain and destruction in the world. So the most evil forces. So she has that within her, and at the contrast of having the good, because as I said, she has Edom, the father of Edom is in her belly, and the father of Israel. These two different nations within, could you imagine like like a day in the life of Rebecca? Like, you know, could you imagine? First of all, she thought she was going crazy. She waited for this pregnancy, and she was so confused. And I think there's a lot to think about in our own lives. Like, we might not be holding twins necessarily, but we do hold a lot of conflict within our heads and our hearts. Like, what's right, what's morally correct, what does it mean to be a Jew, and how does this work with society? And there's so much on a daily basis that we feel conflicted with. And I like to say that the largest place, the largest gap, the largest place someone will travel in their life is the space between the head and the heart. That is the furthest place sometimes, when you're grappling with what you know is right and what you feel is right. Yeah. So that's, I mean, it's just so imagine, I mean, I think we could all think about it, because, and if you watched my video that I sent out last night, I wrote about holding both ends, right? We could hold two conflicting ideas, two conflicting feelings. That's the experience of being a growing person that's maybe not there yet, maybe doesn't fully understand, but like, you know, you're getting wherever you're at, like, conflict is something that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So just making space for that. And the story, did anyone watch my video, or could I share the story? Because it's so cute. The story that I shared last night on my little video clip is that this past Shabbat, I woke up early and my husband was leaving to shul, and he took Shalom with him, which is so cute. So my baby is 9. And for the last 9 years, from the stroller until last week, I walked him to shul. He's my baby. All the other kids go with your father, go. But Shalom, it's like, he's my baby. And I'm like, and especially in the last couple years, like, you know, 6, 7, 8, like, it's when I get to have like one-on-one time with him and hear about his week. And I just like, he's still my baby. And then all of a sudden, for 2 weeks in a row, he's like, I'm going with dad. And I'm so happy for him. I'm also in so much pain. And I'm like walking by myself and humming songs. And I'm so happy and sad. Okay, so that's the conflict that we hold. Yes, they coexist, and we need to embrace both of them, because for every joy, there's a little bit of mourning. For every simcha, there's someone that's not there. And our heart is so happy and so sad at the same time. And, you know, let the tears go. And they're mixed of grief and joy. Every wedding, every bar mitzvah, every simcha, like just seeing like a seat empty at the table. Like, Thanksgiving's coming up. Every holiday, it's like this roller coaster of dashed hopes and dreams, and just holding it all together. So the both and really speaks to me, and that's what Rebecca represents. She's holding a lot within her, and she still has so much hope. She knows that she has these two opposing nations, and she knows that good is going to come, but she needs to take action. And this is the part that is so unbelievably powerful about Rebecca. She does what is so hard. She knows deep down what is right and what she needs to do for the future of the Jewish people, and she doesn't falter. She's not too afraid and runs away from it and lets things just pan out however they end up. No, she steps up, she makes things happen, she does things that seem cunning. There's lies involved. It almost seems like, is that the right thing to do? But yes, she literally saved the Jewish people. The blessing of the firstborn would technically go to the firstborn. That was Esav. Esav from Edom, the evil Esav, would have been, how could he have been the forefather of the Jewish people? Like, how is that possible? This would look very different. The whole Jewish nation would crumble right there and then. It couldn't be that it would come through him. Jacob had all the compassion and all the good traits in him. She knew what she needed to do to be cunning and to switch things around and to make sure that the second child gets the birthright and the second child gets the blessings from the father and it gets the proper blessings. Okay, so let's talk about Isaac for a second, because we said Rebecca and Isaac, they have a great marriage, but they don't talk about their kids. The whole pregnancy she goes through very alone. She knows that she's holding these two nations. Her husband does not know. Okay, she doesn't discuss it with him. And when the boys are born, she still loves them. She loves them their entire lives. We see that very clearly, because the day that Jacob leaves, she actually says, and I don't have the quote in front because Susie's not here, but she makes she says this line like, just go. Like, I would not want to lose two of my beloveds in one day. Meaning she knew that coming down to the crunch, Esau was going to kill Jacob. Right after they switched the birthright and he got the blessings, Jacob had to flee for his life. And she makes this statement showing she loves Esau until the very end. A mother loves a child. A mother believes that a child could change. She's always hopeful that Esau will change his ways. But again and again and again, he disappoints. So how does he disappoint? Okay, in so many ways. But he was also a very immoral man. And he got married on his 40th birthday. Pretty sure, if someone wants to look this up, pretty sure that was when Abraham got married also. So he's showing that he wants to emulate his father. By the way, what was his one redeeming quality? Esav. He had one mitzvah that he excelled in. No, that's not a mitzvah, meaning he was a great hunter. He was a hunter. He honored his parents. That was his redeeming quality. In fact, Dana, do you know that when all the forefathers and foremothers, except for Rachel, that's buried in Kever Rachel, then that's another story we'll talk about next week, all the other ones are buried in the cave of Marat Machpelah in Hebron in Israel. Now, they're not going to bury the wicked Esav there, but he did have that trait of honoring his parents, and because of that, do you guys know, his head rolls in and is buried there. His head was buried in Marat Machpelah because he used his head to honor his parents. He spoke nicely. So even though he had done so much wicked things in his life, and he was such an immoral man, he still got that benefit because of his one mitzvah. Does anyone know what the mitzvah of Kibbut Avayim gives you? What merit it affords you? Just a fun fact. That's right. That's right. Arichas Yamim, long life. There's yeah. Oh, she would tell you. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's the reward. The reward is a long life. Okay, so oh my gosh, our time is almost up, and I was like, we're gonna finish this. We're gonna knock it out of the ballpark. But there's actually a story, the story of two brothers that represent good and evil, and this is a name that a lot of you will recall. The Gorik. Do you recall that name? Albert and Hermann Göring.
Oh, wow.
Göring. So I think he was one of the Nazis that was put up on trial. So Hermann Göring was the top Nazi working with Hitler, right, towards complete genocide of the Jewish people. And recently, documents were uncovered that his brother Albert was working to protect Jews and to save Jews. And it reminds me of the story of these two worlds within one belly, right? That from the same household, from the same mother, same blood, one could be evil and one could be incredibly kind and good and sacrifice so much for humanity. Okay, so that was pretty amazing. So these two are born. Okay, let's try to, like, if you have 5 more minutes, we stay till 12:15. Okay, these two boys are born. Esav from Edom. Edom is a color. What color is it? Edom, red. Okay, he is born red. Okay, it's amazing. He is born red, hairy, like red meaning like angry, you know, like with like red skin. Okay, and very hairy. And Yaakov, his name, so Esav comes from Edom, red. Yaakov means, what does the word Yaakov mean? Yes, heel or ankle. And Jacob comes out of the womb holding on to his brother's ankle. So they call him Yaakov, the heel. He's holding on to his brother's heel, probably because there was maybe he was trying to get out first, right? We don't know what was going on in utero, right? But yeah, Esau was like, I'm out of here, and there was so much that was dependent on who was going to come out first. But okay, and Yaakov becomes a man that is steeped in spirituality and loves to study Torah, and Esav is a hunter, a trapper, a man of the field. Okay, so the first time we have the two of them kind of fighting over the birthright, okay, because clearly the birthright should go to Esav, but Rebecca knew that cannot happen. She had prophecy. She knew she needs to intervene over here. So what happens is she tells Jacob what to do. And by the way, I love this, similar to when we talk about Sarah, and when God says to Abraham, Shema b'kola, listen to her voice, because she has a greater understanding and bina and deeper intuition than you will ever have. God says that to Abraham. He says, okay, I'll listen to Sarah. And that's the best quote in the whole entire Torah. Tell your husband all the time, listen to me, God says. Okay, but over here, Rebecca uses the same words. Listen to my voice. I know what you need to do. And she says this a couple times because it's a very scary situation. He's scared to make the wrong move. First of all, Esav is very wicked and he'll kill him in a heartbeat. Second of all, he doesn't want to deceive his father. He loves his father. He wants to do the right thing. So Rebecca tells him, go cook the food. Esav is going to come back from the field. He's going to be hungry and sweaty and tired. And you sell his birthright. Make a deal with him. So when Esav's like, give me that red stew that you're cooking, the lentil soup that Yaakov is making, he says, pour it into me. And he says, I'll give it to you in exchange for your birthright. And what does Esav say? Sure, he couldn't care less about anything spiritual. He just wants physicality. Just feed me and I'll be fine. So he sells it in a heartbeat. He gives it away just like he casts it away. It means nothing to him. So, and can you imagine how validating that is for Rebecca? It's not like Rebecca's like, I don't know, like, do you think like maybe I should leave it for Esav? No, it's so validating every step of the way. Like, he's not a good guy and he cannot be the forefather of the Jewish people. And he casts aside his birthright in a second. And Jacob, okay, no, sorry, not Jacob, sorry, Yitzchak is still hoping that his twins will have this incredible relationship. And he doesn't give up till the very end. He dreams that they could coexist as one, that they could have this beautiful relationship where one supports the other, because Jacob is not going to be a person who's going to go and make money, and he's not going to be a worldly. Esau is going out to the field and he's fighting and he's hunting and he's bringing home a lot of food, i.e. money. And Jacob is not interested in the worldly pursuits. His head is in the clouds and he wants to study and he wants to become closer to God. And Jacob says this is such a good collaboration, right? By the way, fun fact, we do have this collaboration with Jacob's 12 tribes. There's 2 tribes that have the same kind of coexistence. Anyone know which ones they are? There's Yisachar and Zvulun. And one learns, one is all spiritual, and one works and provides for the other. So this actually comes out through his grandchildren. But he's hoping that his twins could get that together somehow. But Rebecca knows it's not going to happen. So I do think we should stop now because we're over time. Such a good storyline. Any questions? Maybe we'll sum it up next time. Maybe we'll just end it next time and then we'll go into the next one.
Yeah.
Questions, comments?
Great.
Yes? Okay, so I'm just gonna fold this book and we'll pick up where we ended. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Stay warm. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry we went a little over time.